Hello everyone, this is the lecture for Chapter 1, Section 2, A Guide to Economic Reasoning. So, an example of an economic decision rule might be Stephen Levitt's bestseller Freakonomics contains many examples of these thinking like an economist. Alright, so basically what we do, we're saying Levitt uses economic reasoning to explain why people might become drug dealers, why they might become basketball players, why someone might decide to a very skilled basketball player may decide to drop out of college and join the NBA, or why Bill Gates, who otherwise would be considered a very intelligent individual, dropped out of college to, create Microsoft. The potential financial benefits of selling drugs is much higher than the cost of giving up a minimum wage job. Well, there's probably a little more to becoming a drug dealer than that. But there's a lot of stuff that we can go into and talk about this idea of economic reasoning. So the first thing we need to talk about when we're talking about economic reasoning is this idea of marginal cost and marginal benefit. So I want you to think of the word marginal. I want you to think one more. All right, so marginal cost is how much cost is there for one more of something. So for example, let's take espresso. What's the marginal cost of drinking one additional cup of espresso, right? What's the benefit of drinking one more cup of espresso? So the marginal cost is how much additional cost for one more of something. Marginal benefit is how much additional benefit for one more of something. Now in economics, we really like to think at the margin, so we do marginal thought, all right? How many becomes a question of this marginal analysis. So using economic reasoning, decisions are often made by comparing marginal cost and marginal benefit. For example, if the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit, well, that doesn't sound like such a good idea. If the marginal benefit's greater than the marginal cost, well then, that actually sounds like a good idea. So, let's look at our economic decision rule. If marginal benefit of doing something exceeds marginal cost, do it. So we can write it very succinctly. Marginal benefit greater than marginal cost, do it. If the marginal cost of doing something exceeds the marginal benefit, don't do it. So if marginal cost greater than marginal benefit, don't do it. All right, so we can apply this to eating a pizza. All right, that first pizza, right? Makes you feel good. You're really hungry. There's lots of marginal benefit of that first piece of pizza. Maybe it costs, $1. All right, that second piece of pizza. All right, well, yeah, you still got some good marginal benefit there, maybe a little bit more than the marginal cost. So, that third piece of pizza, hey, you're pretty full. You don't really want any more. You're not going to get very much benefit out of it. The cost seems to exceed the benefits, so you don't eat the third piece of pizza. Opportunity cost. All right, this is really, really important. One of the things I want you to remember from this class is opportunity cost. And opportunity cost is the benefit foregone of the best alternative to the activity you have chosen. Now notice I've crossed out next there. And in your text it says next best, and that's actually not quite right. It's the best alternative that you've foregone. All right, so opportunity cost is the benefit foregone of the best alternative to the activity you've chosen. So for example, let's say you could either stay inside and play your Xbox, or go outside and go swimming. All right, you value playing the Xbox at $5 an hour, and you value swimming at $10 an hour. Okay, well, let's say you decide to play the Xbox. I know you say, well, why would I do that? Because I like swimming better, right? Well, let's just say you do for right now. Well, what's the opportunity cost of playing the Xbox? Well, the opportunity cost is the best alternative, right? It's going out swimming, right? It's not taking a nap, which you value at $2 per hour, which would be your next best if you played the Xbox, right? So it's the best alternative you give up. So opportunity cost should always be less than the benefit that you have chosen. Yes, it should. It doesn't have to be, right? If you choose stupidly, right? If you choose the wrong one, opportunity cost could be greater. But if you try to choose such that you choose your best option, your opportunity cost should be less. Because if your opportunity cost is greater than the benefit, then you haven't chosen your best option. Opportunity cost is really the basis of this cost-benefit analysis in economic reasoning. We really have to look at the fact that we have to make choices. All right, we can't do everything. If I decide to play Xbox, I can't go swimming. So which one do I do? Well, whichever one I value most. Well, if I don't take into account the opportunity cost of swimming, I might play Xbox when I really would rather go swimming. So some examples. All right, individual decisions. The opportunity cost of college. What might that include? Well, the opportunity cost of college includes what you give up if you go to college. So if I go to college, that means I can't get a full-time job, which means I lose the income from that full-time job, which really means I lose all of the stuff that I could have bought with that income, right? All the consumption that I could have had with that income that I'm giving up in order to go to college. Now, you might say, well, yeah, but it's a pretty small income, and so I give that up now so I can get a larger income later. True. But if we come back to that example of the NBA basketball star, perhaps they play for 1 year in college, they get recruited by the NBA to play for lots and lots of money, and that income that they would give up is so much that it's too great a cost to not give up and go to give up for college. All right, so government decisions. Here's the thing. We can only spend $1 once. And fortunately, some of our politicians don't realize that. But if we spend money on the war on terrorism, we have less money for healthcare and education. If we spend more money on healthcare and education, we have less money for defense spending for security. So whatever we do, we make a decision. We have to give something up. And that value of that thing that we give up, that's our opportunity cost. So, we talk about economic and market forces using some of this information that we just talked about, this marginal analysis and this opportunity cost, to try to figure out how decisions get made. So economic forces are mechanisms that ration scarce goods. So in the first section, we talked about scarcity. And scarcity means we have less than we want. Well, if we have less than we want, we have to have some way to ration those goods or distribute those goods. All right. And economic forces will provide a mechanism for doing that. So a market force is an economic force that is given relatively free rein by society to work through a market. So we can think of this pretty simply. Somebody sets a price, say at the grocery store. You go in and decide to buy it or not. And if you buy it, then the price gets maintained. If you don't buy it, then eventually it goes on sale for a lower price, and then someone else decides to buy it. We have this market, this interaction between those sellers trying to sell the good and those buyers trying to buy the good to determine the amount that gets sold, the price of that, and then who gets it. We can do that pretty efficiently for most goods through some kind of a market system. Well, that leads us to this concept of the invisible hand. Well, the invisible hand goes all the way back to an economist by the name of Adam Smith, who is in some ways considered to be the first true economist. And he wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations, which was published in 1776, which is considered to be the first true economics text. And he wrote this idea of the invisible hand. It basically says that the market, if left alone, will, as if guided by an invisible hand, move to the best solution that we can get. And for the most part, that's true. We can see this if you just say walk into a bookstore. You walk into a bookstore and you search through the books and you see, oh wow, there's this book that I always wanted that I never knew existed 5 minutes before I walked in the store. I take this book, I go to the cash register, and I pay for it. Well, if you think about it, this is kind of an amazing thing that happened. You have different systems. You've got the paper being produced that it's printed on. You've got the glue to bind it together. You've got the person who actually wrote it. You have the publisher. You have the bookstore deciding that that book needs to be in that spot in their bookstore. All of these different things actually requiring tons of planning by tons of different individuals who aren't coordinating together, possibly years before you walk into that bookstore, manage to put just the right book at just the right time in just the right place such that you could buy it. And all of this happens just by itself, as if guided by an invisible hand. And for the most part, this works. So we can see this working through a particular market. Sometimes we have a shortage. In other words, not enough. We want more of it than what's being supplied. So prices rise. Sometimes there's a surplus. We are supplying more of something than what we want to buy, which causes prices to fall. And eventually we end up at an equilibrium point. So what happens in society can be seen as reaction to some of the interactions of economic forces. So we've got these market forces that we've talked about. We have social forces and we have historical forces. Well, all of this kind of blends together to make up the actual economy that we have. So, for example, if we look at the West and Western economies, we tend to see a little bit lower savings rate than we see in Asian economies. All right, that comes from historical and cultural type influences as well as some social influences. All right, we see some products work very well in the West and not well in the East. We see some products work very well in Wisconsin, but not in Florida. For example, you sell nice heavy winter parkas in Wisconsin because it gets cold, and in Florida, well, they don't buy so many heavy coats. All right. All of these forces influence how the economy works, how markets work, and also we want to mix in here political side of things. That changes things. So, for example, the political environment in the United States is a very different environment than the political environment, say, in Europe. So there's much stronger apprehension about government involvement in the economy in the United States than there would be in European nations. And as a result, we see differing interactions between the government and the economy.